following is a CUNY TV special presentation.
We are honored to welcome back to ABNY former New York City Comptroller Bill Thompson. As Comptroller of the City of New York from 2002 to 2009, Bill was responsible for managing the finances of the nation's largest municipality and supervised a staff of 700 professionals. As the city's top watchdog, fiscal watchdog, Bill oversaw the city's $100 billion pension fund and made crucial investments in affordable housing for lower and middle income families. A product of the New York public school system, Bill has a deep understanding of the needs of both students and educators. He was the head of the Board of Education for 5 terms, and Bill oversaw the system with over 1 million students and 130,000 employees. He is a persistent champion for accountability and more extensive after-school programs, an expanded arts curriculum, higher standards of teaching. After serving as Comptroller, Bill was named Chairman of the Battery Park City Authority, a position he held until May 2012. And Bill and I work closely on many issues related to downtown. We thank you for all your help in helping Lower Manhattan. Bill currently serves as the Chief Administrative Officer and Senior Managing Director at Siebert, Bradford, Schenck & Co., the nation's largest minority-owned public finance firm. Bill, we welcome you back to ABNY, and we look forward to hearing your vision for the city as we move through 2013 and beyond. Thank you. Join us on the podium.
It is a pleasure to be back at ABNY to exchange ideas about our city and its future. Those of you in this room represent every facet of our eclectic and dynamic economy. Among you are leaders in business and labor, the financial sectors, education, and our civic communities. For decades, ABNY has been at the forefront of so many crucial and critical issues facing New York City and New York State. So I'm thrilled to have the opportunity to speak about our common purpose, which is to build a stronger, even better New York City. Billy Rudin and Bill Rudin, you want to be a grown-up, I want to do the same thing too. Bill and I have known each other since I guess both of us were called Billy. Today, Bill, you're leading the call for New York to be treated fairly and for our city to continue to prosper. Thank you, Bill Rudin, for all you and your family, and it's over not just a period of years, but a period of decades, for what you have done and are doing for New York City, and I'm definitely proud to call you a friend. And let me thank Bill for the kind introduction. You know, if I believe the pundits, all of you may not remember me. So Bill's introduction may be a little helpful. But let me point out how often the pundits are wrong. I'm running for mayor of the greatest city in the world, and I'll be proud to represent each and every one of you in this room, because I don't just have the drive, passion, and energy to win, but to make our city greater than ever. I'm the son of this city, a product of Brooklyn's streets, schools, and churches, and I'm extremely proud of my Caribbean and African heritage. Both of my parents taught me the virtue of public service and the value of giving back to our community. My mother as a dedicated public school teacher, and my father as an elected official and distinguished jurist, still going strong at the age of 88. My commitment to public service has afforded me 2 of the 3 best jobs in government: Comptroller of New York City and President of the New York City Board of Education. I redefined the office of Comptroller and made it one that stood up for New Yorkers and their values. I focused my tenure on diligent oversight of the budget, sound pension investments, thoughtful underwriting of public debt, investing in real estate and our neighborhoods, and cost-saving audits. But I also use the power of the office to successfully push companies to implement anti-discrimination policies that protect the LGBT community, and I also was the first comptroller to invest in Israel bonds. At the Board of Education, I made my mark by focusing on not just educating the individual child, but educating whole communities to change the way we respond to investing in our youth. I served the Board of Education during a period of sustained progress, targeting practical solutions and eschewing ideological stances, a stark contrast to this administration's rancor in dealing with its educators. I'm running for mayor to build on my distinguished public service career and to propel New York City forward. I know I can accomplish this because throughout my career, I've developed and implemented pragmatic, creative, and consensus-based solutions to complex problems that face New Yorkers. Today, I want to outline 4 fundamental challenges that I believe our city faces and that the next mayor must respond to. They are: 1, ensuring New York City remains the safest big city in America. 2, preventing a fiscal crisis from taking hold. 3, investing in infrastructure and post-Sandy rebuilding. And 4, confronting the affordability gap which threatens our middle class and working class families. First, on crime. We must not take one step back from the public safety gains of the last quarter century, and we must never, ever let our guard down regarding terrorist threats. As mayor, I pledge that I will lead with a strong hand in fighting crime and protecting our city from terrorism. Our crime reduction has improved the quality of life throughout the city, helped to attract tens of thousands of young professionals, fostered our business climate, and allowed tourism to flourish. But crime reduction also comes down to saving lives, precious lives, especially in many of our most challenged neighborhoods. And to be honest about it, I know a thing or two about that. I grew up in Bedford-Stuyvesant in the 1960s and was Brooklyn Deputy Borough President in the 1980s. So I vividly recall, as many of you do in this room, the overwhelming level of violence and crime that were almost accepted as the cost of living in New York City. I remember neighbors afraid to leave their homes, shuttered business strips, and a pervasive sense that this city could not control its streets or protect its residents. We will never again tolerate that level of crime and violence in this city, ever. So what will I do to ensure that? I'll hire more cops, to be honest and just direct. Hire more police officers. I believe we should increase the force to 37,000 police officers, ending the current threat of a police force that's stretched too thin. The force is below 35,000 for the first time in 3 decades. Furthermore, I propose that we deploy 1,000 of the new police hired to the 5 precincts with the worst crime rates and pool community services from both the public, private, and nonprofit sectors to not only reduce crime in these neighborhoods, but improve the supporting infrastructure, like youth services, to maintain those reductions. To take these actions, we'll have to navigate choppy fiscal waters. But the real question isn't whether we can afford to provide adequate security for our children and families. It's whether we can afford not to. But while I'll not allow us to take one step back on crime, I believe that we can take many steps forward in improving relations between our dedicated police force and the communities they serve. That's why I believe that the current Stop and Frisk program needs fundamental reform. Stop and Frisk is a tool, and a useful tool. I'll not eliminate it, but I want to see it used correctly, and it has to pass constitutional muster. We've all heard the statistics. In 2011, nearly 700 700,000 New Yorkers were stopped. The overwhelming majority of them were black and Latino and innocent. I have a teenage stepson. He's 15. And I was compelled to sit down with him and talk about how he should act if he was ever stopped by the police and frisked. He asked me if I'm not doing anything wrong, and you have to understand, he's a really innocent, naive 15-year-old. He's not a street kid. What he asked me was, Bill, if I'm not doing anything wrong, why would I be stopped? And my answer was that if you're an African-American young man living in Harlem, the unfortunate chance is you may be stopped without doing anything. That's a reality in too many of our neighborhoods. My policies as mayor will strike a balance between reducing crime and protecting the civil liberties of all of our citizens. In addition to strengthening our efforts against crime, we'll also need to be honest with New Yorkers about the fiscal health of New York City and the looming chronic deficits we could face if we don't take bold, decisive actions. And at the top of the agenda is addressing Mayor Bloomberg's failure to both settle union contracts and to put monies aside to pay for those contracts once they're settled. The Independent Budget Office reports that this failure has the potential to leave the city with a hole of billions of dollars. Unfortunately, there have been no checks and balances on these misguided decisions, thanks to the 1-2 punch of fiscal irresponsibility that's Mayor Bloomberg and Speaker Quinn. Enough is enough. It's time to stop filling budget gaps with fiscal gimmicks like one-shots and non-recurring revenues. I'll go line by line through the budget and target savings with an eye towards outsourced government contracts and redundancies that our city can live without. I'm the only Democratic candidate with fiscal experience in both the public and private sectors, and I'll bring this experience along with my unique vision and solution-oriented leadership skill set to City Hall. I'll recruit the best and brightest minds to help us put New York City's fiscal house in order and invest in smart growth strategies in our city's infrastructure. After a tragedy like Hurricane Sandy, it's time that we deal with the reality and realities of our city of islands. We'll engage the greatest minds in design, architecture, and construction to help make sure that our buildings, communities, neighborhoods, and critical infrastructure are prepared for future storms. I'll appoint a deputy mayor for infrastructure to work with these experts. She or he won't report to me about how we're rebuilding, but about how we're aligning resources from the public and private sectors and utilities and building smarter, stronger, and safer. Fixing the gaps in both our budgets and our infrastructure will go a long way towards enhancing opportunities in all corners of our city. Yet, New York cannot and will not reach its full potential until we fill the most threatening gap of all, the affordability and opportunity gap. These gaps are threatening whether our middle class and working families can afford to remain in our city, given the cost of housing, food, utilities, transportation, and even water, given the lack of income growth in the private sector. Far too many families are being squeezed out of New York City. This holds especially true for middle class and working families whose interests will be the litmus test in a Thompson administration. And without preserving economic security for middle class and working families, we would not have access to the American dream that families like mine and yours have enjoyed. Now, it seems like access to that rung of opportunity ladder is becoming harder and harder for many New Yorkers to obtain. The questions we must ask ourselves now are we doing enough to solve this affordability and opportunity gap, and are we doing enough to ensure that New York's legacy as a city of opportunity endures far into the future. We need a mayor who understands that our city grows best, not with great extremes of wealth and poverty, but by opening the doors of opportunity and by sustaining those in the middle class across all boroughs and helping those who aspire to get there. I'll be that mayor, and I'll be that mayor for every community in every corner of our city. In my first term, I'll pursue a 5-borough opportunity plan. My plan will meld incentivizing growth in the outer boroughs, particularly with the small business sector, with large project growth. We'll explore and expand the cost advantages of promoting back-office jobs in the outer boroughs as a business retention strategy. We'll help grow niche business sectors, immigrant-owned businesses, and minority and women-owned businesses. Our approach to small business will reflect the diversity of our people, understanding that their business cannot thrive unless we're sensitive to their needs. We'll be helping the owners and operators of businesses who hail from across the globe and help them understand and comply with the business and regulatory climate in neighborhood shopping districts. And also, let me make one thing clear. New York City is the financial capital of the world, and I'm committed to making sure that we stay the financial capital of this world. But that's only one part of the equation. In this rapidly evolving 21st century global economy, we've also got to make sure that industries of the future call New York home. I commend Mayor Bloomberg for taking important steps towards this goal, particularly by partnering with Cornell to create a new applied sciences school on Roosevelt Island. As mayor, I'll expand on this effort by including biotechnology. Preparing our citizens to succeed in the biotech industry will make a large economic impact. Jobs in this sector are high-paying and carry the largest multiplier effect of almost any industry, according to a Public Policy Institute study. Additionally, instead of educating students from all over the world and letting them leave, we'll keep these trained young professionals who our city has already invested in and facilitate the growth of our middle class. Encouraging broader community development and mixed income housing will require accessing existing government programs and instituting new incentives. It'll also involve private sector investment and engagement in developing communities. There are good examples of existing programs like the Federal New Market Tax Credit Program that offers tax incentives to build schools and quality retail in lower-income neighborhoods. Similarly, the New York State Tax Credit Program offers incentives to build middle-income and mixed-income housing. Creative private investment is also important. Existing platforms like the New York City Pension Fund Lending Program might be expanded to include commercial and retail. Similarly, institutional funds that invest equity in inner-city communities can be expanded and coordinated with public programs. Goals in line with those set by the Federal Community Reinvestment Act can be piggybacked to offer incentives to lenders and investors to expand and diversify their current investments and lending programs. On the public side, consideration should be given to new tax incentive programs similar to the 421A program that are geared to desirable non-housing needs, such as healthy food alternatives, community services, and educational innovations. As with other areas, vision and experience matters. I've done this type of work before, and I've done it well. As Comptroller, I practice diversification in managing our pension funds, ensuring a double bottom line. In fact, I dramatically increased our real estate investments while also investing in communities by putting pension dollars in state-designated banking development districts. We deposited tens of millions of dollars that helped to build and create bank branches and grow lending in consumers and small businesses. As mayor, I'll expand these efforts to diversify our economic development portfolio. Of course, none of this means a thing if our public schools don't adequately prepare our students to succeed. And right now, not nearly enough of our graduates are leaving prepared. Less than 30% of our high school graduates are equipped with college-ready skills. 30%. An over-reliance on standardized testing, an obsession with closing, not improving schools that need help, and a series of policy missteps are costing us in the classroom. This is a collective failure, and one that carries collective consequences for our shared destiny. That's why we need to change our approach to change the outcomes. Here's how I'll do it. One, I would appoint a chancellor who's a professional educator with a deep understanding of what it takes to prepare our students for future success. Two, understand that it's finally time to address the achievement gap and act accordingly. Three, I'll create an ambitious cadre of community schools across the city. As many of you know, these are schools that bring together all the services that families need, from education to health to counseling. And they're open at all hours of the day. As president of the Board of Education, I worked with the Children's Aid Society and the After School Corporation to develop successful pilots for community schools here in New York City. And just recently, I had the opportunity to travel to Cincinnati to study their innovations surrounding community schools and how they've developed that model that serves both pedagogical and community needs. I was thrilled last week to hear the governor advance this initiative in his State of the State message. And as mayor, I'll work with the state to expand this needed best practice throughout New York City, but especially in some of our most challenged communities. Four, in addition to training more young people to be college ready, we'll also have to accept that not everyone goes to college. Therefore, we need an educational system that better trains students through career and technical education for high-tech, good-paying jobs. According to a recent New York City real-time jobs report, there are nearly 300,000 science and technology jobs in the city that remain unfilled. With the right training and education, these jobs can be filled by our young professionals. This is what it will take to prepare New York for its next chapter. It will take real leadership, someone who's willing to tell the truth at all times and make tough decisions. As I've highlighted today, in a Thompson administration, we'll do this in a number of ways. By hiring more cops to reduce crime, especially in troubled areas. By shaping a budget that restores our fiscal health. By closing the affordability gap that shuts too many people out. By encouraging the industries of the future to come here. And by reforming our education system so that children who graduate are also ready for future endeavors. Like you, I love this city. I'm running for mayor because I believe with every fiber of my being that we can move New York City forward when all of us are moving together. I'm running for mayor of the city of New York and prepared to offer my lifetime of experience, vision, and leadership. With your help and support, I know I'll win this campaign and build a New York that's greater than ever for every single man, woman, and child who calls this city home. New York is the most amazing city in the world, but its greatness must be earned and preserved by each generation of New Yorker. To earn greatness in our time, we must have, all of us, must have a rendezvous with responsibility. Again, it's a pleasure to be back at ABNY, this time as a candidate. I've been here as president of the Board of Education. I've been here as comptroller. It's great to be back as a candidate for mayor. Thank you.
You talked about increasing the police force. How are you going to pay for that? How are you going to deal with that in the budget?
That's, as I said, there's some issues and things to be able to do there. Civilianization is one of them, and it's a focus of a few audits I had before, to be able to hire lower-paid civilians, to be able to put more police officers out on the streets. And it is going line by line within the budgets and reprioritizing some things, bringing contracts back in-house and reshifting our focus and our priorities. We have to add police officers, and I'm starting to see, as you continue to talk to police officials across the city of New York, at least off the record, they will tell you that at times manpower is the lowest that they've seen in decades. We need more police officers, and it really at times, as I said in my comments, it isn't a question just of having to do it, or how can we do it? We have to do it. We have to, Bill.
And thank you, and have a great day and great holiday weekend. Thank you.